But it feels like no one's really in a particular rush to get to the bottom of it. Fauci's been trying to close the book and say there was never anything funky going on.
You know, there's this debate of whether it's a lab leak from something that was going on in a Chinese lab or a natural occurrence. It could have been something like studying a virus that they got out of the environment and perhaps having it leaked out into the community. I don't think that's what happened.
It could have been. I don't think. Whatever. 6 million dead. But there's evidence everywhere that this Wuhan lab they were monkeying around with the viruses. And people like Fauci had their fingerprints all over it. Fauci's NIH was handing out millions to this group, Eco Health Alliance, to fund these risky projects. They were even giving Chinese scientists like the Bat Lady lessons on Frankensteining these viruses. It's called gain of function. But Fauci has always denied it happened.
Do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain of function research in the Wuhan Institute. He keeps talking about gain of function. This has been evaluated multiple times by qualified people to not fall under the gain of function definition.
We haven't even figured out what happened with COVID, but Fauci's still keeping the spending spree going. Just in October, he sent more money to the same group, Eco Health Alliance. Why are we still funding gain of function? Can we hit the pause button, please? Dr. Andrew Huff's a scientist who actually worked inside the Wuhan lab, and he says COVID was man-made. He's also the author of the new book, The Truth About Wuhan. So COVID is man-made. You're 1,000% positive?
Oh, I'm 1,000% positive. And there's one thing I'd like to clear up here real quickly. I never stepped foot in China. I never actually worked at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. I was an executive at Eco Health Alliance, and we funded the Wuhan Institute of Virology and managed the relationship and all the work that went on there.
So you funded it and you managed the work there. So you had to have known what was going on. What tells you that this thing was man-made?
Well, it's simple. It's all in the documents that I have in my possession, which I released on Twitter today. My handle's AGHUFF, AG Huff on Twitter. Your audience and listeners can go download those documents and look at them yourself. In the Understanding the Risk of Bat Coronavirus Emergence proposal funded by Dr. Anthony Fauci, it very clearly lays out the gain of function work that we were doing at that laboratory and also with UNC with Dr. Ralph Barrick. There's no question. And what the big psychological operation of the cover-up has been for the U.S. government in this whole debacle is trying to confuse people with this complex virology. And what I do in my book is I explain this very simply in layman's terms so a high school student can understand what happened and how this went south.
So even I can understand it. I appreciate that. So why are they covering this up? I mean, if they did it, own it.
Well, I mean, look at this. I mean, millions of people are dead. A bunch of different, I mean, this sounds like an Alex Jones conspiracy theory, but a lot of very wealthy people, high wealth individuals, and corporations around the planet took advantage of this man-made disaster to restrict freedoms, our way of life. I mean, they're using it to exert power and control. And, you know, why not take advantage of a good disaster? I mean, that's sort of the old saying here. But really, people like Dr. Anthony Fauci, my old boss, Dr. Peter Daszak, Dr. Ralph Barrick, they deserve to be in prison for what they did. I actually raised concerns about the work that we were doing in China when I worked at Eco Health Alliance. And, you know, this is not a new story. That's a funny thing. I've been trying to get this story out for over 14 or 15 months now. And finally, you know, the mainstream media, you guys caught wind of my story, which I'm very grateful for. But this is not a new story. I mean, that's the whole craziness behind this. I actually came forward, like I said, 15 months ago, and I've been trying to get the story to the mainstream. I'm glad I'm here now, but you know, they're terrified. They're terrified of the fallout from this.
Why do you think Fauci should be in prison?
Well, okay, so if you look at U.S. policy and law around what this is, I mean, it's a number of direct violations of U.S. policy from NIH in gain-of-function research. So what they did is they actually circumvented a domestic ban on gain-of-function research by exporting the research to China, and I discuss why in my book, which is even sort of crazier. I believe that was so that they could collect intelligence on the Wuhan Institute of Virology. I actually used to have a top secret clearance working at Sandia National Laboratories in biowarfare, bioterrorism, so I know more things about this which I can't talk about. But it very much looks like we're exchanging or trading advanced biotechnology to the Chinese so we could snoop on their lab. And this is where it gets, even, I like to ask people this question. Do the Chinese need $600,000 of money which they've loaned to us? No, the Chinese do not need $600,000. They don't need $5 million. But the thing that the Chinese really needed was our advanced biotechnology. So, here we are. We gave them this advanced biotechnology. They worked on this gain-of-function research in subpar, substandard environment in their laboratory, and it escaped.
So we were using these grants as an excuse to spy on the bioweapons component of these laboratories. That's wow.
Well, that's what I hypothesize. I think there's a lot of strength to that argument. And the only way we're going to get bottom of this, question everything I say, please do. But Congress needs to launch a full investigation into the origin of this virus. And I believe firmly that all the facts that I lay out in my book will point everyone in the right direction, that this is definitely a lab leak. The only question is how, when, and why.
All right, The Truth About Wuhan. Everybody go check out Dr. Huff's book. We really appreciate